Oh, yeah.
No, here we go.
Hey, everybody. Tommy Lynch here. We are live with another episode of Snapdown Wrestling. We have some great info going out tonight. It's going to be a great night, a great show. Happy Martin Luther King's Day, everybody. We have a special guest with us tonight who's going to talk about Martin Luther King Day. He is our Uncle Felix. He has a show on this network on Tuesday night. He is the political goat, and he is in my lounge. Let's bring him up, Ron. Bring him on up
today, Tommy.
Felix. Hey, how you doing, pal? How's it going?
Quick story. I'm getting a lot of feedback here. Can you hear me good?
Yeah.
Huh.
I hear you good.
Well, quick story before I even get into it. Wrestling, I really respect that sport. I found out it wasn't for me early on. Right, I went to I was in high school, and I was known as the football player. So I remember Coach Constance in Central Falls. I don't know if you're familiar with him. Asked me to come out for the wrestling team.
Yeah.
And when I showed up, he put out a list of all the exercises and things to do. And I guess it was pre-wrestling, pre-practice stuff. And once I finished, I knew wrestling was not for me. so I respect the hell out of you guys who, the endurance that it takes to wrestle.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah. But yeah, today's Martin Luther King Day, and I know for me it's a day of reflection. He was a great man, obviously, whose vision is what helped America reach its pinnacle. What's the word I'm looking for? Potential. Obviously, we're not fully there yet, but it was his vision, his dream that has got us to this point. And obviously with COVID now and everything shut down, there's not much to do these days to actually celebrate. But I remember when the kids were younger, there was always a lot of great, museums, plays, and things you could bring them to. But it's a great day for reflection to talk to your kids about Martin Luther King and his vision and what he gave up, obviously his life, to see us where we are at today.
Absolutely. It's a great day. And one of the most important things that he says is your voices can be heard. Make sure your voices are heard, but make sure it's always in a peaceful way. And I think that's one of the struggles that we're battling with now across the board with what went on. What's going on with the inauguration.
I totally agree. And the difference between him and clowns like Kaepernick is simple to me. When you protest something, you're there to change the hearts and minds of men. You know what I mean? So you're trying to get, persuade them to agree with you. And you can't do that by being divisive. Martin Luther King knew that. He wanted to unite all the people under the flag, where people like Kaepernick was against the flag, basically saying the flag represents this, it represents that, where Martin had a totally different take and tried to unite people under the flag. And obviously he was more successful. He was able to change the hearts and minds of men, where people like Kaepernick and people of his ilk are doing the exact opposite. And unfortunately we're seeing that in the country today.
Right. And I think people are just kind of taking different views on it, and instead of getting back to the basics and back to the root of what was said and what the whole purpose was of protesting and of movement and of change. With the United States of America, we have to unite at this time. Things are falling apart. Today's a great day for reflection. And I want to say happy Martin Luther King to everybody. Martin Luther King Day to everybody. Because it's a special day, and it couldn't come at a better time, because I think we all need to reflect and, take some different approaches and think about where we came from, and that we should all be brothers and sisters and stick together and really try to come together during these tough times.
Amen to that.
Amen. And it's real tough with COVID too. So we're all cooped up. We're all frustrated. We're all don't have the sports. A lot can't go to the gym. there's so much going on. So I think when we get through this tough time, we can start looking for, a brighter future and working towards that together as one united. So thanks again, Uncle Felix.
Thanks for having me.
Coming on and for saying what you said. The Political GOAT, ladies and gentlemen, Tuesday nights on SFBN RI with Uncle Felix, my man. All right, good to have Uncle Felix on. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we are going to bring on our guests. We have Coach Serge Bouyssou and his son Gabriel on tonight, just fresh off the plane, coming from Oklahoma and the Tulsa Nationals. So really good stuff coming up. I'm going to try to run some video as well if we have time. I think we can make the time. It's really, really good stuff and good things to come. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, we are back. Welcome back to Snapdown Wrestling. I'm your host, Tommy Lynch, and tonight we have some great guests with us. We have Serge and Gabriel Bouyssou, and later on in Ref's Rule, we're going to have Joey Esposito come on and talk about some of the rules as we like to have on and talk about some rule changes and to clarify some of the rules that are already in play that we already know or don't know the specifics of, and we get into arguments sometimes about these rules, and really sometimes whether parent or coach haven't got updated on the rules and really don't know what the hell they're talking about, so maybe they should just keep their mouth shut, or if you do know, approach the table correctly. And we're going to go over all that, which is fun, because going to the table when you don't know and you're wrong, going back to the benches is a long walk. And the refs let you know about it. So we got Serge Bouyssou with us tonight. He is the owner of Mayop quanchi. He is the head coach there as well, and that's been since '96 to present. Former Cranston West Volunteer Assistant Coach, was awarded Assistant Coach of the Year, well deserved, and co-head coach of Situate High School and USA Judo World Team Coach. How you doing, Serge?
Great. Thanks for having me on tonight.
No problem. Thanks for coming on. I know that you had a long weekend, a decent flight. How'd the weekend go?
Great. We had 3 kids make it on the podium. 2 of them were younger. Gabriel was obviously in high school. The 2 younger kids were Chloe Ross and David Perez. They both took 6th place. And the competition out there is just amazing compared to what we normally get here locally. It's a whole nother experience that kids need to see. And if you want to become a great wrestler, you have to be able to get as many experiences like that as you can.
And we're going to be talking about that tonight too. I wanted to pick your brain a little bit about, your circuit and what you line up each year, and good ways about going to do that and plan it and plan ahead, especially now with no wrestling going on in Rhode Island. There's a lot of lag, a lot of time where some of these kids are doing nothing. Some of these kids are wrestling in the club maybe 2 days a week, hitting no tournaments. It's really hurting us. And to see, tournaments happening in Oklahoma, Ohio, Virginia, and all this going on, it's encouraging yet discouraging because we got nothing here.
Well, I can tell you that all the toughest areas of wrestling in the country, they're wrestling. We're being held back, and it's really difficult. I think a lot of people don't understand that in order to be competitive, especially being from a state of Rhode Island, we need every avenue that we can to get these kids the success so that they can be successful in college. Because even if you're not getting a full ride scholarship in college, there's not a lot of full rides. People think there is, but there's not. You can still get into colleges that you'd never normally get into. And we're putting a lot of the rest of the country ahead of our kids right now. It's hard for me to see that, and to see our kids that I had a couple of kids personally that I think would have done much better at that tournament if they were able to get out and compete. Basically, they're just stuck in our practice room. So, and even at that, we're limited on numbers. We have to keep our numbers below 50%. Everybody's got to wear masks. It's really difficult. Like, you can go on there and you can see that there's high school wrestling happening in Florida and Oklahoma, and a lot of the parts of the country have are still moving ahead with their high school seasons, and there are opportunities for their kids to get experience.
So you've been out there, you're talking to some of these people. What's the numbers looking like? Are they through the roof? Are they spiked? Are their percentages 20, 30% because of wrestling, or is it just
I can't speak for the actual science, but I can tell you this. Every wrestling person that I spoke to, Mayop quanchi included, we've had zero outbreak.
Right.
Zero. People have gotten sick that were members of the club, but they hadn't been around the club for weeks. And it was all basically adults, not really any kids getting it.
Right. Well, now, the vaccine is in play. You got rapid tests that are in play now in the schools. The staff and the faculty are getting these rapid tests. The students are getting these rapid tests. So before outbreaks happen, I think with this in play, we're going to be able to stop a lot of this. These percentages should start going down. We should be able to have somewhat of a season. Now they're talking about spring 2 is the last that I heard. Have you heard any different?
No, I heard that we're going to actually be the very last season of the year.
Spring 2, which would be an April 26th start.
Yeah. If that's even going to be allowed to happen. But, by that time, we're going to have a new governor. And I think that our new governor may be a little more lenient and understanding that these kids need to be able to participate in their sports. It is healthy for them. It is the number of things that I see from kids. It's so unhealthy for these kids not to be participating in sports. Right. They're more at risk from lack of activities and being cooped up and not being able to socialize with people. It is so, in my opinion, bad for the children. I mean, obviously we have to put every protocol we can in place to keep them safe. But when you think about wrestling in a wrestling match, there are two people having contact with each other. Two. You're playing a basketball game. There's however many people on a court. I don't know because I don't play basketball. I think there's 5. So that's 10 people and people coming in and out off the bench. That's a lot more people interacting with one another, aside from that one-on-one thing. And I think that there just wasn't enough thought put into it. I
agree.
They just looked at it and said, okay, wrestlers touch each other. We're definitely not doing that. I think that was just not a well thought out response.
That's as far as it goes. As far as I can tell, that's as far as it goes. And, I didn't want to get into the whole COVID discussion, but I do feel that it's important that we have this discussion because that's as far as it went. Oh, you don't get any more contact in wrestling. They touch each other. That's out because that's F. And they're not putting into consideration it's only one person, or the contact tracing is going to be very easy, that we already have these things in the sanitary.
More sanitary than the wrestling room compared to a lot of these other places. We're already used to cleaning and cleaning and cleaning because you have all the skin diseases.
Right.
So we're still cleaning and cleaning and cleaning, except we're actually doing it more now. If you walk into my club, The first thing that happens to you is you get your temperature taken. Then you have to hand sanitize. Then your name goes on a list. We can't have more than a certain number of people. We have contacts for every single person that goes there. So we've really done as much due diligence as what we possibly can.
Right. And this can happen across the board. And I don't think it's fair that these bigger states are having regular seasons, their December 2nd start, and going with their regular season. And when they're bigger, you got Ohio, Texas, you got Oklahoma, Virginia, Pennsylvania, Florida, you got all these big states, but yet we can't. Listen, if it's going to happen, it's across the board. Either it's all go or no go, because everybody's traveling there, wrestling anyway, and then coming back. So what the hell's the difference? There is no difference.
Well, I had a friend of mine say to me the other day, he's a good friend. He's not a bad guy, but he's not a wrestler or a judo player, so he doesn't understand. And he said, hey, I don't know why you or anybody would push for any sports, because it's just a sport. Well, for him, it's just a sport.
Right.
But for kids like Gabriel, who definitely wants to go to college, and it means that he could possibly get a scholarship. You think about the amount of money that's on the line for a scholarship to go to a good college. How much money is that? $250,000 for a full education? That's what's on the line. It's not just a sport. To these kids that live it, it's part of their life. It's what they and who's anybody to say that what they do is less important or less essential than what anybody else is doing? It makes sense to me. I think that just we need to approach. Obviously, we need to approach with caution. Obviously, there is a pandemic. Obviously, there's a lot of things that need to be taken into consideration in preparation for practice, in preparation for what if there's an outbreak, in preparation for how are we going to travel and what do we do when we get that. All the protocols just need to be put in place so that everybody's as safe as possible. But we can't ask these kids to stop living anymore.
No, we cannot. And I don't think that we should. And as long as, let's face it, frontline workers, nursing homes, elderly, problem patients with respiratory illnesses get vaccinated. Well, excuse me, I'm sorry, but it's just a high school kid with a cold at that point. And no disrespect to the higher ups that are making the decision or to the virus itself, but
no. Obviously, we want to
as long as the people that are dying are protected. I just don't understand. I think it's a little bit of a overcautiousness going on with this whole thing.
I mean, people are dying.
They are. And like I said, I don't want to take away from that, but once the vaccine is in place and these people are vaccinated, especially these high risk, elderly, nursing home, frontline workers, people in their 50s, even 40s, once that's taken care of, I think we can stop moving back to business as usual. And
hopefully as we get toward April, there'll be a much higher percentage of people getting vaccinated daily, and it's safer for our elderly and the people that are actually dying from the disease.
Yeah. All right. Well said. And with that, let's just take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to bring your son on. We're going to bring Gabriel on. We're going to talk greener pastures, and we're going to talk this weekend and great performance. So we'll be right back with Snapdown Wrestling. All right, welcome back to Snapdown Wrestling, produced by Sports Fan Base Network, Rhode Island. And we're here with Serge Bouyssou, and we're going to be bringing his son Gabriel on, who is a Wildwood champion, Reno World Championship finalist. Is that right, Serge?
Yeah, he's a finalist at Reno Worlds.
U.S. Junior Open Championship finalist, 2020 USA Wrestling preseason nationals in Iowa, 5th place. Also national judo champion, 2019 U.S. Open judo champion. And he's going to be a freshman this year at Scituate High School. Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And
he just recently took 5th at preseason nationals in Iowa.
Yeah.
And obviously this weekend he was in the finals in Tulsa.
Right. The Tulsa National, he was in the finals, lost 3-1 on a very controversial takedown. And we're going to go over that. And I may bring that up to Joe Esposito and our refs rules when we get to that portion. Before that, he's also a 2-time middle school state champion, 2-time New England champion. And let's bring him on in. Gabriel, come on in, buddy. How you doing?
Good. How about you?
I'm doing great. Super job this past weekend. How you feeling?
I'm feeling really good. I'm excited to be here tonight. Thank you for having me.
Very
and my dad, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
No problem. And
He told me earlier he was super sore.
you saw.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. Don't be a wimp. How can you be sore?
I'm
International
not complaining. I'm not complaining.
championship tournament. Of course you're not. Tough as nails. Obviously, great showing for Rhode Island. Great showing for Mayop Quanchi. Great showing as an individual wrestler all around, period. And can't stress enough, just great job. What type of preparation did you do for this tournament? And before we get into that, what was the last tournament you were in? How long ago?
The tournament before this was actually it was the preseason nationals, right?
It was a kickoff classic, I think.
Yeah, it was.
Iowa, then kickoff classic, then this.
Yeah. That was the last tournament.
And how long ago was that, would you say?
November.
So, okay. So
Yeah.
a couple months ago.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, normally we'd be in the middle of high school wrestling season. Now, do you normally do a tournament like every couple of months, or is it sooner than that?
The problem, usually it's tournament after tournament, but so obviously with COVID, like we've been talking about, the tournament, they're spread thin. There's not a lot of choices.
Right.
But we are able to go to a tournament once, twice a month, all of the national events that are being hosted.
That's great. How do you think that makes you fare as a wrestler? I mean, what do you think that does for you?
It's really good for any wrestler, really, to be able to get out of just their state and feel a variety of how everyone else wrestles. If you don't go nationally wrestling, it holds you back and you don't go really anywhere. So if you're able to go and wrestle in all of these really good states with different types of wrestling, because we all know how certain states have their specific styles, it's really beneficial for any wrestler.
To get out there, hit the tournaments, guys.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah.
No matter what level you are, just get out there, start hitting some of these tournaments for sure.
Also, though, like we don't just haphazardly
Don't
go.
pick random.
There's a development process, and we're very methodical about the tournaments that we choose and why we choose them. So not every kid belongs at Tulsa Nationals. If you think about money and how much money parents have to spend on wrestling, it starts adding up, right? So you want to make sure that you're getting them to the level that's appropriate for them, so they get the experience, but yet they also get the mat time. So you don't say you're not ready to compete at Tulsa Nationals. If you haven't been to Tulsa Nationals to understand, there are tougher tournaments than Tulsa. There's Super 32, and there's Fargo, which in my opinion are tougher than Tulsa. But I saw plenty of Super 32 placers and Fargo placers that did not place in Tulsa either. So that'll tell you the level of the tournament. If you're placing at Super 32 and you're not placing at Tulsa, it means Tulsa is no joke. So, but anyway, that being said, if I take $1,000 and I spend it for my child to go to Tulsa that does not belong at Tulsa, and they're pinned in 2 matches, how much money per minute are we talking about?
Right.
So I mean,
down.
100%
down. Yeah.
So Gabriel went to Tulsa. He got 7 matches. Great. That's development. It's worth taking and putting that money into. This year he'll try to get into Super 32. He'll try to get into some of the others. He'll probably, think about Journeyman and Fargo, and we know he can be competitive. We know he can. He's in the hunt in those tournaments at this point.
Right, but you have to be you have to be at a level to where you're there. You're at that level, like you're a middle school state champion, middle school New England champion. You don't want to go there as a first-year wrestler. You don't think that would be advantageous,
right? But then there's also the opposite effect, and this is really what happens in Rhode Island a lot. We got a lot of kids in Rhode Island, and they die on the vine because they stay here, they stay in New England, they get up to a certain level, they're happy on that certain level, they feel like they're winning because they are winning. They're going to New Hampshire, they're going to Massachusetts, they're going to Connecticut, they're going all around. They're like little gerbils on a treadmill, doing the same tournaments, wrestling the same kids week after week. Well, then you're biting into that kid's time for him to be a kid also. So to take Gabriel and say, yeah, we're going to go to this local tournament this weekend, we're going to hit 5 local tournaments, and then we're going to hit this big, that also is not necessarily good for development, right? So you have to understand that you have to carefully think out for each person. So what I do with my club is, in general, I have a development process where I'm saying, like, this year is extraordinary. This year is extraordinary. Okay, so it's not necessarily how we always fly. This year, it's like any opportunity we can get to put our hands on kids. But normally, what I do is I look at the dynamic, the geographic. Well, not just the geographic area, but I look at the dynamic and the demographics in my club, and I take the medium where everybody's at, and that's how we choose our tournaments. We also try to stay local for some tournaments because we also definitely want to help develop the state of Rhode Island. I have been trying to help develop the state of Rhode Island for 20 years. And it hasn't been easy, but we're really making traction. You think about the number of kids that came out of Mayop Quanchi now that have gone on to D1 wrestle. We have kids in Edinburgh right now. We have kids in Columbia. We have kids in Campbell. We've had kids in Drexel. We've had a lot of NCAA D3 All-Americans that grew up wrestling in Mayop Quanchi now. And those kids are starting to go back and start their own clubs. Right. They're interested in helping Rhode Island wrestling grow. My son-in-law, Stephen Jarrell, and his brother, Ebed Jarrell. We're working closely with them. We're starting to work together on getting some events going. And I see it as a big boon for Rhode Island that we have some of the club teams that are wanting to work together. So there's a whole element to development that I think Rhode Island is just starting to catch on to. And it's been a bit of a fight. And I think that a lot of the high school teams and the club teams tend to butt horns a little bit. People want to be territorial over their athletes, and the only person that suffers for that in the end really is the athlete. Right. I tell the athletes in my club, don't ever walk into your club practice and tell that coach, well, this is the way we do it at Mayop Quanchi. Shut up and listen and take the lessons you're going to take from that coach too. Like it's hard. And I tell kids, you're wrestling with me for a few years, but I've got to deal with all these other people for the next 20 years. So
correct.
Think the right way, act the right way, and we at our club, we're not going to tolerate you kids making problems for us in their high school team, because we really do need to all work together. Like, we get them for 8 months a year, basically. Us at the high schools, obviously I'm a high school coach too, we get them for 4 months of the year. With the Rhode Island high school rules, you're not allowed to have the whole team and work them together all year long. We don't have them coming in 8th grade. Like, that's another thing I really don't understand, that I'm disappointed with the Rhode Island Interscholastic League. You know, Massachusetts, New York, if you're in 7th or 8th grade and you're capable of wrestling, you're wrestling in the high school. In Massachusetts, if you're in 8th grade, you can wrestle for your high school team. Again, other kids are getting ahead of us with experiences that our kids, especially the elite ones, aren't getting.
Right. Yeah. A lot of things I think have to change with some of the Rhode Island stuff, and where they got to catch up with some of the other states, for sure. I definitely see that. It can help Rhode Island wrestling as a whole.
I think there's another thing too. Rhode Island wrestlers tend to think that they cannot compete. Like, they're surprised when they win a match at nationals. I have to tell you this. Rhode Island wrestlers are tough. We're just as tough as any other wrestler in the country. We could be just as good and compete with them all the time. It's all the same gene pool.
Yeah.
There's no reason why kids cannot come and compete at the top level from Rhode Island. There's none. In judo, everybody across the country knows the name Mayop quanchi. In wrestling, people are starting to get to know the name Mayop quanchi mainly because I'm just bringing the kids out there. It's not rocket science. You want to compete at the top level? Don't wait. I hear this all the time. Well, I don't think he's ready for that. Well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
What does it mean you don't think you're ready? Do you think you wait until you're going to be a national champion to go out and try to wrestle at nationals? Well, guess what? That's not going to happen. You go there and you look at that big show, and there's fireworks going off inside the building, and the light show, and the lights are pointing down on the mat, and they got the smoke coming out, and those kids look at my God, I can't do this, because they're just not used to it. So they gotta get a level of, like, all right, this is okay. This is not a big deal. I can compete here.
Right.
These kids are just like me. They're no different than I am.
You got to give them a taste of that stage. You're right. If they're ready for it, you got to give them a taste of that stage. A lot of the wrestlers, though, can't get out there, don't have the funds, the money. What do you suggest in situations like that? How are we going to help kids?
A lot of times clubs will do fundraisers and things like that. We haven't done much. Our club does help some kids from time to time. If I have a really special wrestler, I can tell you that if his parents are struggling with the network of people we have at Mayop quanchi, basically kids don't miss things because they can't afford it.
Right.
So it is costly, but I'm going to tell you this: nobody spends more money on wrestling than I do.
I believe that.
And what you're giving your child as a gift, it can't be bought with money. If you're looking at it saying, well, this is really expensive, I've got news for you. It is the best investment you will ever make in your lifetime. To see the way your kids behave, to see what it does for your children, both as an athlete and as a person. There is no amount of money I would not spend on this sport of wrestling or judo. To me, they're very they're cousins.
Yeah.
The product that you get cannot be replicated by other sports that are not these sports that take so much to compete in the sport. You have to be a special person to decide that you want to be a wrestler to begin with. It's the best gift that you'll ever give your children. And people say, well, I'm saving up for college. Well, guess what? If you do the things that you need to do in your child's development, that kid is not going to need you to help him pay off his college. That kid is not going to need anything from anybody, because you're enabling him or her with all these experiences that is going to make them excel in life. It goes long past the mat. So when people talk to me about, oh, this is kind of expensive, I don't know if I can swing it, and then they tell me about all this other stuff, I'm like, right. you gotta get with the program.
Yeah.
It's the best money you'll ever spend. You'll never, ever regret a nickel you spend on your children when you see how they develop as people from the sport of wrestling.
Now, let me ask you this: any of the other clubs doing this? You mentioned Iron Faith. What are the other clubs in Rhode Island? There's Iron Faith. There's Mayop Quanchi.
There's Blackstone. There's Brown Bears.
Yeah.
There's Top Flight. I know some people have gone to some things. I've seen some interactions.
So these other clubs are also doing that. They're bringing their groups to these different tournaments.
Well, I guess, Stephen at Iron Faith, we all know that's my son-in-law. Yep. And with him and his brother, Ebed, grew up wrestling in Mayop Quanchi. So they're taking a group of middle school kids to Pennsylvania at the end of January. And I'm helping fill in all the gaps with a team from Mayop Quanchi. So we're working together to field a team for that. And we have a few other events happening between the two clubs. We're going to make sure that we have teams that are fielded that are good. I'm doing a dual meet in Massachusetts coming up in the near future against some of the other club teams from the New England area. It's very strict. There's no visitors. There's basically two teams in a room.
So we're gonna. So that would kind of be like if those clubs combine and a travel team, it would be a Rhode Island travel team. Just one quick question, and then we got to get moving because I do want to take a look at some of this weekend. But the two clubs, would that be the Rhode Island team? Is there a team Rhode Island? Because when I was coming,
there will be a team Rhode Island. Me and Steven already spoke about it. That we definitely needed a team Rhode Island. I've got other coaches at Mayop Quanchi. We all know that Giblin's there. Giblin is amazing. My son Serge Jr. We have Ebed. We have Steven. We have coaching staff. If people want to get involved, I mean, I'm not interested in any of the club differences or anything like that.
Louis Felix, I think, is on board.
Louis Felix is over there. Louis Felix and I are like this. I coached Louis in judo and some in wrestling too. And
he talked about you a couple of weeks ago when he was on Snapdown here.
I love those guys, and they're all thinking the right way. That let's just get our kids from Rhode Island to where they need to be, because we really, really have some special wrestlers here in Rhode Island. Our kids can compete with anyone, and I mean anyone. Gabriel this week beat a kid that's won Pennsylvania state championships multiple times. He's a Super 32 placer. Like, Gabriel's a freshman in high school.
Which match was that?
That was the round of 16 match.
The round of 16. I didn't see that one.
Something funny. For some reason, it was removed from Flow. I'm not sure if they requested to have it taken off, but that's a different. It's a difficult.
What we do have, and Gabriel, I want to talk to you for a second. Is we have your semifinals match, which is amazing. Do you know anything about that kid? Have you wrestled him before?
I have never seen him wrestle, but at these national tournaments, it's important that you study up on the kids that you're wrestling and know how to deal with them. So, like, before the match, I knew I was going to wrestle. I was watching him wrestle on the side. So I kind of knew what to avoid and also what to go for.
Yeah.
So
did he have a rank or anything like that? Do you know? When I was coming through, and I would say when I was coming through back in the day, I didn't care who they were, what their record was, how many world championships. Didn't matter to me. I didn't study that. Didn't want to know. I did watch their wrestling, like you're talking about. But did you know going in if he had anything, who he was, or did you just not care?
I don't bother with looking at the stats. No.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Yeah, Gabe couldn't care less. 1 year.
That's the way to go. That's the way to go. Now, listen, let's take a short break, come back, and then we're going to have that semifinals match. All right, you had an awesome throw in there. We're going to air that. When we come back, we'll be right back. This is Tommy Lynch with Snapdown Wrestling, produced by sfbnri.com. All right. I think we're back.
Yeah.
Hello.
Mr.
Thing on.
I don't know if everybody can hear me, but that was a very funny text you just sent me, BA. He's laughing about me, Charlie. He said, yeah, nobody spends more money on Lester than me. Because he saw me throw the $100 on the table for the protest in Gabriel's match that we're going to go over right now. That was so easy.
No, this is the semifinals match. I don't know if we're going to be able to get to the finals match because it's a little longer, and but we'll see. But let's see if we can pull up the semifinals match. We'll get it in there. We'll get it in there. Yeah, you threw the $100 for the protest. That is awesome. They should have taken a look at that. But let's check it out. Let's see if we can pull up the semifinals match. Hold on. Was it frozen on your guys' screen?
No, we could see it.
I could see you. It wasn't frozen. It was playing.
One more time.
Let's go, Gabe! Let's go, Gabe! Head down, keep the weight on him into the table. Step out. Do it! Oh, no. Get it out. No, two. This kid's gonna get mad and try to, like, punch Gabe. Oh, yeah, and then he started. He hit Gabe into the cage and then he fell. Let's go, Gabe. Yeah. That was. Let's go. 3, 4, 5. Let's go. Time! Let's go.
Back it up a little bit. You're not even
Can you record this for me?
Yeah, I got you.
I really need to
To show score.
stress him. Let's go, Gabe! Oh!
Got this.
Oh!
Yeah! Let's go!
Let's go! He's in the
That was the nastiest headlock.
Wait.
You're not gonna know.
Awesome.
There we go.
Awesome match. Great throw.
Thank you.
Them judo hips.
Yeah, the judo hips.
That's why it's so important to do both sports.
What's that?
That's why it's so important to do both sports.
Well, I was a thrower, so I like to see the throws. I like to hear the rumble of the mat. I like to hear the oohs and the ahs and all that. And that was definitely an ooh-ah moment. Good stuff. Wow. You know, that's the semifinals match at Tulsa National. I mean, that's not.
It's funny, right? You get into Tulsa and people talk about names. Listen, if you're in the semifinals of Tulsa, never mind what your name is. You're a serious wrestler.
Right.
You're not getting that far in a bracket with more than 60 people in it by accident.
Right. Awesome. And at some point after this, Serge, I want to get together. I want to post some type of route of tournaments throughout the year that like you would take, or a good strategy to say, hit this tournament, leads to this, and this qualifies you for this, to let other people know. And we'll post that like on our Facebook High School Wrestling Rhode Island page. And you're a member of that page. We got quite a
one of the things that I really like that USA Wrestling has done because of this whole COVID thing is they're creating other avenues to get colleges to look at you. So we'll be doing some of those college showcase events, and I'll be opening it up to other kids around the state of Rhode Island that want to come with me. But around the country, they're going to be having college showcase events. And I posted that, I believe, on my Facebook page or the Mayop Quanchi group page just the other day, saying like, we're going to be doing this, and we're going to be opening it up to other kids that need.
Sorry about that.
No,
that's great. And we're going to be doing the same thing, kind of like recruiting thing and getting kids hooked up with different college coaches. And, we're going to be doing the same thing on our end as well. So I think moving forward over the next few years, we're really going to be with you and Eben and everybody, really pulling together for Rhode Island. We're going to really make a difference and start getting these kids some great competition for one. And we're going to start getting them in front of some major coaches and really swaying the view to Rhode Island to check out these athletes. Yeah. Now,
New England's on the rise in general, but Rhode Island is really on the rise. I mean, you can't help but notice what's been happening with the state of Rhode Island. We're the smallest state in the country. And we have kids at these national events consistently placing. That's something to be take note of.
For sure. Well, last year, was it not last season, the season before, we had our first national championship, a national champion in Josiah Fry, also one of yours. So definitely on the rise. Rhode Island's on the rise along with New England, and we should be taken seriously and should be hitting these tournaments and pulling together as one Team USA Rhode Island unit. Now, we're going to be having Joe Esposito come on and ref rule in a few minutes, but I do want to show that finals match. I know that everybody's kind of looking to see that, so I want to show that finals match. And Joe, you're in my lounge right now, and I want you to pay attention to the controversial takedown and when it is it a takedown or is it not a takedown based on the rules of right now.
I've had a lot of referees, it's been very it's very funny because it was such a close call because half the referees I've talked to, most of the referees I've talked to say no score.
Right.
There's a few guys that said, no, Serge, it was a score.
Hands were down on the mat, and then he pulled them.
And was up
so close.
But some people say it wasn't. He didn't establish control or get beyond reaction time is usually what I've been hearing.
Well, we're going to get Joe's opinion on it live, so let's get to that match because it's a long one, and we're already going to run over. And I know that Gabe probably has to get to school, and of course, Joe goes to bed at 9:30, so he's already past his bedtime. I'm just kidding with you, Joe. Let's pull up that match and take a look, Joe. Let's know what you think when we pull you on.
Oh, shit. Come on, Is it boys?
It's gonna be on you. It's clean slate.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Great match.
My palms were actually sweating watching the review.
As they should have been. As they should have been, for sure. Tough match. Now, that was the number one ranked kid in the country at 125 in Lockett. He is a two-time world team member all-star. Right?
Yeah.
That kid was no joke. You gave him all he could handle, and that was just too close to call, that takedown. Had that gone differently, you still would have been neutral. There was only a couple seconds left in the period. It changed the whole course of the match.
Yeah. You can see at the end of that period, too, how Gabe started, like, panicking because he's down now at this point, and he's got to just start throwing caution to the wind. But I think if we went into that,
I wouldn't call it panicking. I just thought I'd call it hurrying.
Yeah,
because the time was short. He's too cool to panic.
A lot of might have been a much different outcome if we went into that third period 1-1 and that kid didn't get that break, because you know, Gabe has a motor and a half. If you don't have that break going into the third period, it literally took, I don't know how long, but he had a considerable break in his wind back.
I think 7 or 8 minutes.
Yeah.
How much I got in between that
pause.
Third place.
Right.
You know, it is what it is. Gabe showed that he can absolutely wrestle among the best wrestlers in the country.
And that's 100% true. Thank you for writing in, Kathy Ellis, Brian Waza, of course, Coach Giblin, for your comments. And this is great, Giblin. He's like, here it comes. Just before that scoop behind, with his hands down for a split second and back up. So with that being said, let's go to Ref's Rule segment of the show and bring in Joey Esposito and see what Joey thinks, and along with a couple of other rules. Ref's Rule.
Joey.
Hey, Joey, how are you?
Your mic is muted.
Your mic is muted, yeah. Hold on.
Is it good?
There you go.
Can hear you now.
Gotcha.
All right, guys. Tommy, how you doing, buddy?
Very good, thanks. Good to see you.
Serge, Gabriel, great show this weekend. Great show.
Thank you.
I love seeing the videos. I watch them over and over again. Great wrestling. Little toss there. Real nice. You know, and it's great. It was a good toss. It was a great toss. But I'm more impressed with the control wrestling, the scoring points when you needed to score points on the tilts and whatnot. And it was nice. It was very, very nice watching. Very good. I enjoyed it. I watched that situation with the 2 points over and over again. I kept freezing it, trying to catch the moment that he came around. And what I want to know is, why do you think there wasn't 2?
I don't think that he established control beyond reaction time. I thought by the time he came and swung all the way around, Gabriel's hand was up. Hands had come up at that point. The kid was in transition behind, but he didn't. I felt like he didn't establish the control beyond the reaction time.
I feel the same way.
And I have to tell you that college, right? Because you don't have that reaction time. College is different. High school, I felt like no two. It cost me $100 to believe that. Right? and I'm there. And listen, I'm not kidding you. I had more than one referee there tell me, you got a 2-time world team member who's also a local kid.
Right.
You're not getting that call in Oklahoma. So I was like,
I get it. It was a close call. Real close call. The thing I think most went against him was the fact that as he was coming around, the rule states that once you put your hand down, that becomes a supporting point. And yes, it's beyond reaction time, but then you have to say, okay, so what's reaction time? He had the hand down before he came around. If he had come around and then he dropped the hand and came up, unless I'm seeing it wrong, I see the look on your face, Serge. But as he came around, he had the hand down, and as soon as he came pocket to pocket, he picked the hand up and turned and faced him. You know, so that's how I saw it. Would I have given the 2? You probably would have yelled at me too. So I probably would have.
Hey, that look is me not having my glasses on and trying to. That people are sending. It wasn't any other look.
Yeah, I think you had more of an argument with the stalling than with him not getting 2.
Yeah.
I probably would have banged that kid in the first period for stalling.
Yeah, I felt like he was defensive like the whole time.
He shot at the end of the first period at the out of bounds line, and that was it. Everything else he did was almost like defensive. He really didn't do anything, and he was always near the out of bounds line. I think if there were stalling calls made prior to that, earlier in the match, it would have been a completely different match too.
I give them credit though. They really did wrestle a good match against Gabe. They did their homework. They were smart. They knew how to shut down some of his stuff. I mean, I give that kid all the credit in the world. Even stalling. I mean, it's part of the sport. You're gonna deal with it. I'm not one to really bitch about stalling. I might try to bring it to a ref's attention, but stalling is definitely part of a sport. If I'm up to score in a big match like that and I have a stall to give away, guess what, buddy? As long as that ref's calling, banging me for that score, I'm not going to tell my wrestler to go forward and wrestle.
Right.
To me, that's for the ref to say, "Okay, bud, you gotta start wrestling here. You gotta engage."
Yeah. And a big match like that, the worst thing you could do is call stalling with 3 seconds left too. If you're not going to call it the whole match, don't call it.
Just don't call it at all.
And have it just a warning call.
There's no more in that moment than there was from the first period, right? Yeah. So that style of wrestling that he was doing, it wasn't new at the end of the third period. So waiting for 3 seconds left, I mean, just walk over to Gabe and slap him. Just that, because it makes zero sense whatsoever to call a guy for stalling with 3 seconds left. What do we? He didn't change his style of wrestling the entire time.
He wrestled the same way the whole match. I definitely would have called that more frequently. Anyway.
What do you think, Gabe? What do you think?
Well, in the match, it didn't feel like 2. I didn't feel the control at all. Now that I look at it, I did notice that my hands were on the mat, and I could see why people would think it was a 2. In my opinion, it was beyond the reaction time. I didn't think it was 2. For that, in college, they're talking about, in college it would be 2, but at my age, you have that reaction time, and by the time he was around me, my hands were already coming up, so I didn't think it was any points.
Again, close call. If light could have been argued the same way, going the other way. Tight match. And when you get in matches like that, those calls are going to happen. That was a tough call.
And kudos to you, Gabe, for keeping you cool in that situation, knowing what level that is. That's the finals of the Tulsa Nationals. And for you to keep you cool, just wrestle on, let your coaches do the arguing or do the protest there at the table, and just keep your head. You don't say a thing to the ref. You just went out there, you wrestled your match. Even at the end, you just was cool, calm, collected, and a real gentleman. And that's how a wrestler should behave. I see
something too, everybody says, beyond reaction time, it was called too quick. And then everybody also says that we got to transition more towards college rule. So you're going to see those calls being made, and probably a little quicker with the control on those calls as well.
Here's where I stand on that, Joey. I don't care how we want to call that, as long as we call it consistently.
Yeah, I agree.
Great.
I agree.
A rule, and then I don't have to lose $100 at the table fighting it. It's as simple as that to me, right?
Right. And
Whatever the rules are that they want us to abide by in wrestling, right? What people need to understand is it really is super important to have the rules put in place and us have those established rules locally that we're going to be seeing in Tulsa, at Super 32, at Virginia Beach, in Iowa preseason national. That's really, what we need for our athletes' development too. Is like, you got to wrestle like this. This is the way. I mean, we can even set up, drills toward that. Like understanding what's two, what's not two. I mean, for me, just the number of people. There's literally a big number of people that think it wasn't two, and then there's a big number of people that think it was two. And by the way, it's not just coaches; it's referees that have said the same. So it tells me that there's a little bit of disconnect in the continuity of the calling. So if I've got this guy who's going to call that as two, and then I got this guy that's not going to call it as two, well, it confuses a kid. So you got a kid like Gabriel who's performing at a certain level, who doesn't even know whether it's two or not, right? So if we can't tell them what's two, how the hell are these kids supposed to know? It just gets confusing for the athlete when it's a not
control situation yet, Serge, where it's tough seeing it from both sides of the fence that quick. A call happening that quick,
Yeah,
you got to make the call on the spot, and it's a tough call. And Ron had mentioned that, like in the NFL, we review a play, it has to be clear cut. I froze that. I played that film. I froze it to see if I could catch exactly when he came around. Because when I look at a guy coming around to cover, I look at hip to hip or pocket to pocket. That's my key when he's coming around. Hip to hip, pocket to pocket. He doesn't necessarily have to be around him to get that control. He can be hip to hip. He can be pocket to pocket. So that's what I was looking for, and I kept looking at it, and I think the biggest part that hurt Gabriel more than the fact that if he called control quick enough was that he had his hand down prior to him spinning around, and that hand stayed there until he came around, and in that split second he pulled it up, but that's what made it look more convincing than anything else, was that hand being down. And that was a point of emphasis in 2019, 2020, where they changed the wording on that call for a takedown, because before they said that it had to be weight bearing when you put your hand down for it to be a call. And they eliminated that because they said, okay, so now we got to determine whether or not it's weight bearing when he puts his hand down. So now they called it a supporting point. And just like anything else, it goes down, boom, it becomes a supporting point. Was it there when he came around back? Again, that was a real tough call, real close call.
I mean, it's so close. They're not going to overturn it, and you're not going to get it overturned in that situation either. It's just not going to happen. But my job as a coach,
I would argue that all day long. I would argue it, and then as a ref, after I made that call, I would have said, "Here it comes," expecting the coach to make the argument. So
And with that being said, what's the best way to approach the table, Joe?
Throw $100
with a $100 bill, but
it's happened to me. Throw $100.
Respect the referee. That's right. That's right.
The best way. That right there is the best way.
You come with respect. You come with a point, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you gotta. I mean, first of all, you can't be screaming as you're walking to the table at the referee, because no referee, that right away puts him in a mindset saying, he's resisting you. Know the rule. Know that, you know what I mean? Like Stevie Gordon used to have a rule book in his back pocket, and I swear he memorized every page on the rule book because he'd whip that thing out and he'd be walking to the head table like this. And when you got there, he opened it up and he was, he wasn't always right, but he was prepared anyway. That's the best way to approach the head table is being prepared as a coach. Don't you hear a lot of coaches that aren't really well versed with the rules saying, well, last match, well, this match, well, earlier in the day. That's gone. That's gone. That happened before. It's gone. It's a different match. It's a different situation. Just be prepared. Every year may not appear to some coaches, but I read this rule book cover to cover. Whether I think I know it or not, I read it cover to cover. My referee's exam, it takes me on average 3 hours to do it. I don't care how many questions are on it, because I look up every question, whether I know it or not, to make sure I'm familiar with it, And as coaches, I think that's what's lacking, especially when they approach the head table. What are you arguing why? It's that's what.
Been hit with a misconduct.
And you get hit with a misconduct, the coach.
But I have never been hit with a misconduct, never. Never.
That call there, I mean, you don't have to say that was the wrong call. You can say to the ref, I don't agree with the call. Like, what, why was that two?
Well, they asked me
why it was two.
The referee asked me, why do you feel as though that was not two? And I said to him specifically, I don't feel like he established control beyond reaction time. Coming behind the kid and his hand is staying on the floor. I don't believe that. Then his hand never went back down to the floor. So he's like, okay, good point. So he took that into consideration when he looked at it. Definitely. And he could see that I do know the rules, right?
Yeah.
But I don't have the benefit of going over and looking at it over and over and over and over in the computer. I only know what I saw in my eyes like that. So, I mean, if I had that little bit of insight to be able to look it over and over, I mean, maybe I would change.
It was a good argument, a real good argument, But again, best way to approach the table is just be prepared and be a gentleman, because just screaming at him is kind of getting beyond everything else and saying that's not the rule. Well, what is the rule? What is the rule? And guys, one referee in our association, the coaches would take him to a table and say, do you have a rule book? And he'd say, I have a rule book. Do you?
Right.
Okay. All right. So what's the rule? You tell me what's the rule. If you're arguing it, tell me what the rule is.
Right.
So as he memorized that rule book, like he could tell you the page, he could.
It was crazy. It was crazy with these guys. I have so many marks in my rule book, and pages folded in, and it's weird because you always say that situation will never come up, and then something happens in a match, and you go, "Oh boy, yeah, there it is," and you have to make that call.
So there it is, coaches. I mean, you heard it. Know your stuff. Go to the table with respect to the referee. And go with a cool head. Don't go yelling. Know the rule. Have a point. Don't tell the ref that he was wrong. Just ask him why he made that call, and then you argue your point of why you think it should be your way. And maybe he'll take a look at it and say, okay, you know what? You're right. We're going to overturn this, or it's just the way it is, and let's get back to the action. So I don't think I've ever had one overturned. Maybe once, but my first year coming, I came to the table hot and heavy, and that was first year head coach type stuff, right?
Let me tell you something. As a referee, I have changed calls. When guys took me to the table and talked it over with me, I have changed calls. I said, you know what? Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that wasn't 2. You're right. And I've changed it. I've admitted the mistake and changed
And
the
that's
call.
okay. And that's
Yeah.
okay to do that. For any of the refs that are out there that are watching this now live or going to watch this, it's okay. You know that. It's okay to make mistakes. If great refs
No,
like Joe
I
Esposito and
want
Gavina.
the right kid to win the match for the right reasons, not for the
Right.
wrong reasons, you know?
Right.
So-
We all want that. We all want that. And with that, I think that's a wrap on Snapdown Wrestling for tonight. We went a half hour over. I knew it was going to go a little bit over due to the content, and we had some video footage and matches that we wanted to watch. But guys, thanks for coming on tonight. Serge, great job with the kids. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Very, very good thing that you're doing and have been doing right across the board. Gabriel, keep pushing and slugging and staying in there and being that cool, calm wrestler that you showed in a very, very important match where, I've seen some of the other ones, even the matches that I was watching at that tournament were very poor sports, wouldn't shake hands, wouldn't, walking away and throwing headgear and all that stuff has to go away. Keep your head about yourself. You're a great, great role model for the sport at a young age. That's very impressive. So keep that up. Joey, great to have you on board and weighing in on that. And thank you to everybody that put their comments up there with Brian and Coach Giblin and my assistant coach, Chris Carbone and Brian Waza. Thank you guys for tuning in. It was a great show. Again, thank you for coming on board and for watching Snapdown Wrestling with Tommy Lynch, powered and produced by SFBN RI. And Serge, if you got one more comment, we have another minute.
I do want to make 2 comments.
Okay.
One comment is, Joey, our Rhode Island referees, I've been traveling all around the country. Our Rhode Island referees are as good or better than most of the places that we go to, and that's no bullshit. I don't know if I can say that on here.
Yeah.
That's one. 2, I plan on putting together a Team Rhode Island for the Virginia Beach National Championships, and we're going to be looking for sponsorships, and we're going to be looking for some help to help get a Team Rhode Island out there, because we don't know if we're going to have a high school season, but we are going to have a national championship at Virginia Beach for NHSCA, and that's huge to me.
That's in April. April what, 18th?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the date is. I'd have to go on there and look, but it's in the middle of April. The end of April. So that's huge. And they changed a couple of rules so that we are going to be able to wrestle at weights, even if we don't have state certifications at weights. They're going to leave it to parents' discretion and coaches' discretion as to what weights people go. And you're not going to have to qualify by placing in your state. That is huge for us. So I just want people to know that there's going to be an opportunity. If you're interested and you're looking for a club, it doesn't matter what club you want to go to. I can help put you in touch with any of the clubs to help, and we're more than willing to work with anyone and everyone around the state of Rhode Island to let's go and let's get our kids what they need so that colleges can look at them compete on the top level. It'd be wonderful.
That's great news, Coach Serge. Really appreciate it. Yeah.
I got to thank everybody in the state of Rhode Island for showing Gabriel so much support. He got,
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, literally, how much support did you get, Gabriel? Between
My phone was blowing up all night and day.
You don't know what that means.
Wrestling is a great community, a great family.
Even when he lost in the finals, the outpouring of support was amazing for a Rhode Islander to be out there and feel that love from back home. I can't thank you all enough for that. It's awesome to be part of Team Rhode Island, and there's big things coming out of the smallest state, baby.
There you go. Yeah, the little state.
Well said, guys. Thank you, Serge, Joe, and Gabe. And for all you that tuned in tonight for Snapdown Wrestling, this is Tommy Lynch signing off. Stay safe.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Produced by SFBNRI.com.
Good night.
Good night.